It is my passion project, like you said, and I'm someone who's very social. I enjoy meeting people.
Because I'm old, but I'm not that old, right? We already had
Yeah.
that culture. The culture impact was already there to a large extent. So challenge wise,
And you covered a lot of interesting topics, I should say. And so, if for my viewers, you had to give, for our viewers, you would have to give three quick bullet points.
something which is more holistic, right? I'm going to say prioritizing sleep. Okay.
Okay. Welcome back to another episode of the Ambition Circuit, everybody. Today, I'm with a very special guest, Mrs. Neha Bharti, and I'm going to hand it over to her to give a quick overview of herself.
Thank you, Vedansh. I'm so glad to be here, first of all. And it looks like I'm going to be the first female guest on your podcast. So I'm feeling really honored about that. So
Yes,
thank you
we are
for
very
having
honored to
me.
have you.
All right. So, Videsh, before I start giving my introduction, I just wanted to ask you like, this is your passion project, and how are you managing with college and this going on together? I hope you're enjoying it. And how do you manage your time around both these two things?
So it is a little bit difficult because it is my passion project, like you said, and I'm someone who's very social. I enjoy meeting people. I imagine it like sales. I go on my LinkedIn and I cold message people, and I'll get messages from people. And so they'll ask me what my podcast is about and things like that. And I get to do like a little pitch for them. And then I get to invite them to be on my show and I get to speak to them. And I just love that. And so
Yeah.
that's why I really wanted to pursue it in college. But what the issue was is that I just didn't have so much time to record episodes as frequently as I was in high school and over my summer vacation. And
Yeah.
so what I started doing, unfortunately, was that I had to change the frequency of my episodes from weekly to bi-weekly just so that I could keep getting consistent recordings and uploadings in. But I did really want to keep pursuing it, which is why I still work so hard to get my bi-weekly episodes out. But it is a little bit of a time crunch. It's just that out of the same 24 hours in the day, I like to at least put in 3 hours a week, 4 hours a week into my passion project so that I make sure it runs smoothly and continuously.
That's great. Yeah. And I really admire that you've been able to do this very successfully. And your podcasts are great. I listen to them every time. So I'm a fan.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So now maybe I can start talking about myself a little bit. So
Yes.
first, professionally, right? Like I'm a transformation leader. I've been in the industry, IT industry, basically for the past 20 years. I started my journey as a developer, right? That was my first job in TCS. So I was literally writing code. And now from that point onwards, I've evolved my career to be more of a leadership position at this point. Um, I've worked in enterprise, many big enterprises, global enterprises, and over the years, I've done a lot of good work in transformation as well as in implementing technology across companies, right? So that's been my contribution to the world of IT so far. Professionally, that's about it, right? And personally, I
Mhm.
enjoy reading. I enjoy hiking. I'm a voracious reader, right? Like I find that as something that gives me a lot of relief from day to day work. I enjoy reading fiction, nonfiction, all kinds of things. Very undemocratic in that, right?
That's cool. That's nice. It's
I
good that
also,
you're keeping up with your hobby too.
yeah, I'm keeping up with my hobby. Sometimes it gets hard, of course, because my
Mhm.
work is very intense. I do work a lot. I'm also a workaholic, even though that's not ideal. But I do tend to work a lot, and but it helps that I work remotely a lot, right? I go in
Yeah, yeah.
to the office only when there's an important meeting or something, but otherwise I'm remote, so that helps. Um, and hiking is also something else that I really enjoy doing. I've covered most of the
That's cool.
great ones around me in this area. Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. So I mean, right off the bat before, and I usually ask more career-oriented questions, but I think you might be the first guest on many levels who's talked so much about their hobbies and that kind of work-life balance. That's not something I usually see. So I'm gonna go a little bit off script here and ask you,
Sure.
is your love for hiking out of nature or out of your love for nature, or is it more a fitness thing, a combination of the both, or what drives that?
Yeah, it's actually a combination of the both. And nature is a major part of it, right? And I can give
Hmm.
you an anecdote. Like when I first came to the US, that was around how many years ago now? 18 years ago at this point, right? So when I first came to
Hmm.
the US, the first thing that struck me was the sense of space. Right? There was so much space available,
Yeah.
and and there's so much natural beauty. I came to Jersey, right? And Jersey is known as the Garden State, so you can imagine it was really beautiful. April, early spring, and I was
Yeah.
just taken aback by the amount of vastness that I saw around me, and trees and beauty and everything. So in the beginning, when I first came here, I was still trying to settle. So at that time, I did not even know about all the different the different mountain ranges and hikes and other things that were available over here. But then a few years down the road, I also started my fitness journey, and then hiking was
Mhm.
one way for me to connect to nature, and also it gave me a sense of accomplishment. Like, I've done some very difficult hikes as well. I mean, not as you would, an Iron Man or somebody like that does. Like, mine are more like anodyne compared to those kind of experiences. But one of the few hikes that I did, for example, I did the 1,000 steps hike in Pennsylvania. That was quite challenging. And then, once you're up on the mountain, once you've done the hike and you're on top of the mountain,
Yeah.
and you're seeing natural beauty around you, that does something magical to you. And then the sense of accomplishment you feel, it's hard work, right? And that sense of accomplishment is really something that is pretty much addictive, right? You want to do it
It's
again
what
and
fuels
again.
your battery. Yeah.
It fuels your
Awesome.
battery. Yeah, yeah.
No, I love
Yep.
that. I love that. That's awesome. And I feel a little bit of that in myself. You know what fuels my battery is, like what I said, I'm a very talkative person. So this is what fuels my battery. Talking to people, connecting with people. That's like my version of hiking. That's what gets me
Yeah,
going. So I love that.
that's
I
amazing.
love
Yeah.
that. So, looking into our questions now,
Hmm.
you talked about coming to the US and, being so taken aback by the space. But what motivated you, or what impacted your decision to come to the US? And what was your transition like, professionally and personally?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, as I mentioned, I came to the US around 18 years ago, right? I was quite young at
Hmm.
that time. I would still call it young, mid 20s, mid to late 20s.
Yeah.
So, it was not a professional decision, to be honest, right? Like, I was always enamored by the Western world. I grew up reading, like, Thomas Hardy, George Eliot, and
Yeah.
the Bronte sisters. So, uh, the countryside of the Western world, especially England, right, at that time, was very attractive to me. But when my sister moved here, your parents, right, when they moved
Yeah.
here, that's when my love for the US started, pretty much. And then also, I'm not going to deny that professionally, I also felt like it was an achievement. Like, I was achieving something great by coming here, because
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
selection process. Every immigrant knows this. There's a selection process. There's a whole thing that goes before you come here. So it was not a professional decision in the beginning. My family was here. My husband was already here. So when the opportunity kind of presented itself, it was like that was the most natural thing for me to do. I felt that the most logical step was, yeah, I have to go to the US. And then when I came here, I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of like hard, right? It was
Yeah.
almost like uprooting my life. India was the only world I had known before that, right? So it was literally like, I was uprooting myself from there and then replanting myself here, starting from scratch pretty much. So that comes with its own challenges.
Yeah.
But I'm also going to say this, and even though the latest news cycles may tend to change your mind about it, but America is a very welcoming country for immigrants, right? America welcomes people who want to build a life over here. And I felt that firsthand when I came here. So I set up my house here. In fact, everything that I've achieved so far, like in terms of my identity,
Yeah.
in terms of my personal growth, professional growth, everything has been here. So I owe a lot to this country. So yeah, long story short, it wasn't a professional decision, but I felt like it was really a phenomenal decision I made for my life. And I'm really glad I did that. Over time, I've built my life here, and I'm very
Awesome.
proud of my career that I've built over here. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. That's awesome. Being able to romanticize the country personally and professionally is
Exactly.
is is different from what I usually hear. So I love that's an awesome answer. Thank you for that. But I know you talked about uprooting your whole life, and that's true into the core of the word. Literally you're shifting cultures, mannerisms, food, languages, the whole nine is being changed. And so, what kind of challenges did that present to you in the workforce when you first began your career journey in the US?
Yeah. That's a great question again. And then, culturally, this is how I'm going to answer this. So, even though I have already dated myself a little bit over here, but even in my time, right, when I was in India, we were not like
Mhm.
culturally very aloof at all. Internet was already there.
Yeah,
We were
definitely.
exposed to American music, American music and movies and stuff like that. But at the same time, I was also working for Americans, right? Like I was working for an American country, Bank of America, when I was in India. In
Yeah.
fact, even before that, I was with MetLife. So MetLife and then Bank of America. So I was always exposed to the American way of working. So professionally, it was not such a big lift for me, right?
Hmm.
Also, even culturally, it wasn't because, I'm old, but I'm not that old, right? We already had
Yeah.
that culture, the culture impact was already there to a large extent. So, challenge wise, I feel like a few things, right? A few things were definitely challenging. For example, working with offshore,
Yeah.
the time zones, and a few things like, the time zones are different over here. In India, we're not used to that. So, that presented challenges. But more or less, it was kind of like a smooth transition for me. And you know what? In my heart, I feel like I was always built for the US. Right? US is my country. I was just living in another country for the
Yeah.
first 20 years of my life, and then I came here. This is home. So I fit right in.
Yeah.
That's my answer.
That's good. That's good to hear. So
Yeah.
then, how would you say that, you know, you advanced your career from such an early age? Because you did come here young and start working young. So how did you advance your career and get into such leadership positions? What kind of habits and tenacity brought upon that?
Yeah, that's a great question again. And this is going to be a long winded question. So please, if I start rambling, stop me
Of
and bring
course.
me back. Yeah. So, like I said, I started my career as a developer, right?
Yeah.
And then this is where my formal education played a hand, right? Like, of course, I became a software engineer, and I could do that only because I was trained as a computer science graduate. So that landed me my first job, and I really enjoyed my time as a developer. Like, I'm not going to complain about that at all. That gave me the grounding that I still draw upon even to this day.
Hmm.
Learning those basics, like, I feel like if you want to be a leader in a particular field, you have to have been hands on at some point of time in your history, right? As you become a leader, your time becomes limited. So of course, today I'm not writing code at all, right? But I
Yeah.
understand how code is written. I understand what goes on behind the scenes. So that understanding, I feel like, makes me a better leader, right? So that is one thing.
Hmm.
And then the second thing I'm going to talk about is continuous learning, right? So when I started my career, .NET was the big thing, right? We were
Yeah.
actually writing code from scratch. I don't know if you're too young. I don't know if you know about all these C sharp and those kind of frameworks or not.
No, those are like in the
Oops,
in the ancient
in the
textbooks for us.
yes, exactly.
That's like history, intro to coding. That's what we hear about.
Yeah, and now people generally, nobody actually writes code in binary. Even we did not write code in binary, but you don't have to
Yeah.
go to that level anymore. You have tools that help you. You drag and drop. You use no code or low code versions. And nowadays you also do vibe coding with ChatGPT, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
from that point on to this point, the world has seen a lot of changes. And what has kept me abreast with all of this is continuous learning. And I already mentioned to you before that I'm a voracious reader, right? And I
Yeah.
and I feel
Definitely.
unsettled if something comes my way, if I hear about something and I'm like blindsided. I don't know what that thing is. That makes me very uncomfortable. So I do want to go
Yeah.
back and learn and keep myself, updated in terms of what's the latest and greatest that's happening. And my nature, the nature of my job is also similar. I'm in transformation, right? I'm a transformation leader. So my
Hmm.
day to day is basically looking at how people are doing work and then figuring out how I can disrupt the way they work by
Yeah.
using basically all the tools that are available to me, right? So I need to know what are those tools that are available to me, right? What is the right fitment? So if I don't know what the technology is, I'm never going to be able to sell it, or
Yeah.
I'm never going to be able to start a program to build something, to build a solution to solve a real world problem, right? So and this is going to be it's an advice that I would give to you and anybody who's listening to me on this podcast, right? Continuous learning, you cannot abandon that, right? It's a
Yeah. Of
lifelong
course.
commitment. Yeah, you always have to keep learning about new things, and not only in the field that you are in. I believe knowledge for knowledge's sake, right? Just to
Yeah.
become a better informed citizen of the world, and just to be a more interesting person, right? Like I feel like you have to know things, and and you can achieve that only by continuous learning. So my answer is short and simple: education, formal education, very important. Continuous
Definitely.
learning, even more important than that.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I love that. And I think, you know what, that's a great answer because it's like you said, it's about being a well-rounded person. So those kinds of things go beyond just your career, go beyond your 9 to 5. It shapes how you view the world, how you understand politics, what
exactly.
causes you to vote, what drives those decisions. And so I
Yeah,
love that. That's something that's like a foundation of life.
yeah, and then the other thing I would like to add is, you must have heard about your gut feeling, right?
Yes. Yes.
What is your gut feeling? It's nothing but a summary of all the knowledge that you've acquired so far. There's nothing magic about gut
Yeah.
feeling at all. It's everything that you know, and you may not be conscious of it, but it's there. All that knowledge is there in your brains and your neural circuitry, basically,
Yeah.
and then all that informs your decisions that you make. So you're going to be a better person, you're going to be a well-rounded person, more interesting person, and at the same time you're also going to be making better decisions for yourself. You're going to be, you're going to look at an opportunity and you would know whether to take this on or let this go, right? So
Yeah.
reading helps with that. Yeah.
Awesome. I love that. And, moving on to our next question,
Sure.
working with leading companies, you mentioned Bank of America. I know you've worked with Pfizer in the past. I know you're currently at KPMG. So what
Mhm.
have you learned about delivering, true impact through business or through true business impact through technology and vice versa?
That's a great question again. Yeah. So um so here's how I'm going to answer this question. So see,
Hmm.
technology and enterprise, right? In today's world, you cannot separate the two. They are so deeply entwined together, right? We know that
Definitely.
technology
Yes.
has been having an impact on
Of
our
course.
world for so long, right?
For so long. Yeah.
But in terms of these enterprises and how these big companies and these big firms work, what makes the difference is not just implementing technology, but to,
Hmm.
to make sure that there is adoption, right? I feel like that's the most important thing. um, Adoption is important. So you have to
Yeah.
go where the problems are. You cannot just develop a tool, even though it may be a very cool tool, but you cannot develop a tool and just hand it over to someone and say, here, use it, right? They will not
Yeah.
use it. They will
Definitely.
only use it if it solves a problem that they're having, right?
Hmm.
So that is one thing. Adoption is one thing. And then the second thing that you have to think about is not just deploying tools, right? You have to step up from that a little bit. You have to look at people, technology, and their processes, right? You have to
Yeah.
look at it in a more holistic way. You have to step up a little bit, 10,000 feet, maybe even 30,000 feet. Oh, wait a second. I think my computer just is acting up. Yeah. So
You're
you
good.
have to. Can you still see me? I'm fine,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
you're good on my end. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So you have to think of these solutions as technological solutions in a more holistic way. You have to take it to the people who are actually going to use it, and only then it'll be a meaningful disruption to the way they work. Right. Uh,
Hmm.
you want people to be able to derive more value from a solution that they're given, and not become like an overhead, right?
Definitely.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so creating solutions that also take into account user experience. You do not want people to click 5 different links, right, to
Of
get one
course.
task done. You want to
Yeah.
give them an experience that encourages them to use it, that they find useful in their
To
day-to-day
optimize it
life.
for him. Yes.
Exactly. So user experience, adoption, change management, how you train people up, how you solve a real world problem for them. These things are very important in these
Cool.
organizations. Yeah.
Cool. Cool. And you know what? We covered a lot of interesting topics, and you covered a lot of interesting topics, I should say. And so, if for my viewers, you had to give, for our viewers, you would have to give 3 quick bullet points on your advice and your takeaways from today's conversation, today's episode. What would those 3 be?
Great question again. So let me think about this. 3 important things, right? And this is professionally as well as personally, right? So I'm going to answer this
Personally,
question.
all
I'm
around.
going to
Yeah.
all around, right? Yeah. So my answer number one is going to be something which is more holistic, right? I'm going to say prioritizing sleep. Okay.
Of course,
and,
I
the,
can
and this
resonate with that. I can
you can
definitely
resonate.
resonate with that.
Oh, yeah, I think all teenagers over here are going to
Yeah,
resonate
of course.
with that. But I'll qualify my answer in the following way, right?
Hmm.
We feel like, you must have heard, people my generation or even older than me say that sleep is for the lazy,
Yeah.
right? But that's not true. you know.
Hmm.
Sleep, has evolved with life. Pretty much every organism on the planet sleeps, right? So there has to be a reason for
Definitely.
it, right? There has to be a reason for it. And you know what changed my mind about this? I used to be in the same camp too. I'm like, people who sleep too much are lazy. They don't want to do
Yeah.
any work. That's why they're sleeping. But then I changed my mind when I read a book by Matthew Walker called Why We Sleep. And this is something I'll recommend everyone to read. This book is phenomenal. It's a science book, but it's very
Yeah.
accessible to anybody, even a layperson. So don't be daunted by the science book title. It has, what it tells you. It tells you that sleep occurs in different stages, right? There is non-REM sleep, and then there is REM
Yes.
sleep.
REM sleep. Hmm.
So in non-REM sleep, what happens is our brains actually take the time to consolidate memory. Right. So whatever you've learned during the day, the brain is consolidating everything. And besides, it's doing other things, like, for example, it's cleaning up the circuitry. It's doing a whole lot of other things. But memory consolidation is one thing that whatever you've learned gets solidified during the non-REM sleep. And then
Of
during
course.
REM sleep, what happens is the brain is able to make connections because the executive brain is off when you're REM sleeping.
Yeah.
The frontal lobe is off. So that is why you get such vivid dreams during REM sleep, right? And that's when the brain is making all these weird connections that you would normally not do, right? And haven't you heard of, I think you might have heard of this, Mendeleev, when he came up with the periodic table, the thought
Yeah.
occurred to him in his sleep, right? So he was so
Yeah.
deeply entrenched in the problem, but only when he allowed himself some sleep,
Sleep.
that's when the circuitry made all the connections that were needed, and then pretty much the answer appeared to him in his sleep, right? So
Yeah.
I'm not saying that every one of us has to develop something so groundbreaking as a
Period.
periodic
Period.
table,
Yeah.
but the small problems that we have on a day-to-day basis, some things that we are struggling with, some answer that's just elusive to us, those things will start
You
appearing
get
to
the
us.
clarity.
You get the mental clarity that you need. so
Definitely.
so
Yeah.
my advice to youth would be to prioritize sleep. That is
To
number one.
sleep. Of
Yeah.
course.
That's a form that's almost like biohacking, and I cannot stop recommending it enough. And then the second one would be, like I said, again, reading, right? And I don't want to
Okay.
harp upon this point too much. I've already explained why I think reading is so important. Knowledge for knowledge's sake, right? Knowledge doesn't always have to be means to an end, and the
Yeah.
end being earning money. Knowledge for knowledge's sake, just read, just be a well-rounded person. It'll do you
Of
good.
course.
And then the third one, what is the third one? Yeah, third one, it's very simple. The third one is be deliberate in what you're doing, right? Don't
Hmm.
let life happen to you. Make it
Yeah.
happen for yourself. Like, be an active participant in who you want to be. And this may sound like woo woo advice. This may sound like, like Deepak Chopra, but that's not what I. But what I mean to say is, to make it more tactical for people your age would be, just have a conversation with yourself and talk about what are the
Of
values that
course.
make sense to you. What do you want to be? Do you want to be a technologist? Do you want to be, like, a manager? Do you want to start a company? Do you want to be an entrepreneur? Like, what do you want to be? Talk to yourself about this. And I'm not saying that find the answer and then stick to it. Like, that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
you should
Yeah.
you should always, be ready to pivot, because the world is changing, and if you're not changing along with it, then you're just stuck in your old ways,
You're
right?
behind. Of course. Yeah.
So you want to be flexible, but having that conversation with yourself and figuring out what are the values that you stand for. What is a brand that you want to build? What do you want people to think of when they think of you? That's what the definition of brand is, right? What's your personal brand? Just think of that and work deliberately towards it. Like, every
No,
action you
definitely.
take, yeah, keep that in mind when you interact with people, when you're delivering something, when you're writing an email, even when you're responding to people, when you're making a phone call.
Yeah.
Just keep your brand in mind. If you, like, you're very affable, you're very, outgoing, and you're very smart, right? And that reflects in everything you do. But if you make that extra effort, um, to make sure that other people realize that that's your brand, that goes a long way. People will know you for that value that you're standing for. So be a little
Of course.
deliberate and start young. Like, I'm not saying that you have to wait till you're like 25. You kind of know, as soon as you're in college. Most of your friends are in college, and I guess people
Yeah.
who will be listening to this will be either in college or even beyond, right? So they already
Yeah.
know what kind of person they are. So yeah, just figuring out what energy you want to send out to the world and work towards it. Was
Definitely.
that too philosophical?
No, I like it. I like it philosophical. That's cool. Gives us something to reflect about and think about. So thank you for
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And with that being said, that will conclude another episode of the Ambition Circuit. Once again, Mrs. Neha Bharti, I am very thankful for you giving your time to our show. And you know what? You brought a great legacy for many to come of female guests on the show. So thank you for that as well.
That's great. And then, and Vedansh, in this episode, we ran out of time, and we did not talk about another passion that I can talk a lot about, is
Hmm.
AI. So maybe if in
Oh,
future an opportunity comes, I'll be happy to join you and talk to you about artificial intelligence, and what is the good work that is happening in the industry, and especially
of
in the
course.
companies that I've worked for in the past. So yeah, I'll be looking
Of
forward to
course.
that. And
Of
thank you
course,
so
definitely.
much for giving me this opportunity. Really enjoy talking to you.
Of course. Thank you for giving us your time. So thank you. Thank you for that.
All right. Until next time.
Until next time.